Whether you're new to pool and practicing the basics, or a more experienced player performing drills to improve your shot making and positional play, the Drill Partner is perfect for you.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another edition. I'm Molina Mike, and I got my man Panozo here. We're not in Kansas anymore, Mike.
No, we are in Manila, and I was sleeping soundly this morning. All of a sudden, there's a knock at my door, and this guy's walking in with all this equipment and a new suitcase that he bought in Vietnam that's like the size of Rhode Island.
I could probably put one of my girls in there, and she might want to come over here. Collins, my man, what's up, buddy? Hope you're doing all right. Let me know in the chat how the audio is coming through. We're set up here in the hotel room at a pretty nice spot. I ended up I didn't give you much of an option when it comes to giving your boy a place to stay. You know, you can't kick me out now, though.
No.
We're already committed, Mike.
It's gonna be good.
It's been good. We're on our way to a press conference a little later on this afternoon. Middle of the night for you guys there in the States. And yeah, man, but the Hanoi Open finished up, Mike, and hopefully you got to catch a little bit of it while you were over here hanging out in the Philippines.
Yeah, I was in Manila watching it. Most of the matches the last day or two. Really, great atmosphere, great matches, a lot of surprises, a lot of drama mostly with Team Europe, right?
Yeah.
The Team USA was kind of settled a little bit early,
right?
But Team Europe, with that third automatic spot still up for grabs. David Alcade was deep. FSR looked like he was, might make another run to the finals. So
might be the FSR of old a little bit.
Yeah, it was good action all the way, and obviously the Filipino contingent was out of deep control. How many Filipinos, and if they weren't matched against each other, they might have been, 4 out of the final 4.
Well, this is kind of what we were hoping for when you come to a big event out in Asia, right? Yeah. You really want to have it be just a mix of the knowns versus the unknowns. Then you had qualifier, the Harry Vergara's of the world who, come in on a qualifier and then beat the likes of Shane. But before we get going, I want to just acknowledge my man Colin's comment here. I wish I could show you guys the text. I might still have it there. But he texted me, I think it was during it might have been the Kachi matchup. And he was like, I don't know what everybody thinks about Chua. Here.
Why is he a big deal?
Yeah, he's like, I don't know why he's on the TV table, blah, blah, blah. And then he ends up going off and snapping the whole thing off. And but yeah, no, it was an amazing event. It was an amazing final couple of days, Mike. I don't know, do we ever get to talk about filler with you? I don't think I ever had you on the show, did I?
Yeah, we did talk.
About Josh
in the press conference. Yeah, I have the balls to do it. It's just no point. Because it's good. It'll all. I'm going to get a surly, and it's going to be next question. So, and in their Matchroom's defense, at this point, the focus should be on the players that are here. It's a big story, the player who's not here.
Yeah.
But the players who are here getting ready for this event, and it's going to be great. That's who we should be talking to and talking about, right?
Well, for sure. But I just can't help but think, especially considering the fact that you had such dominance when it comes to the Asian players. I mean, look, 3 of the Final 4 were
3 out of the Final 4
were Team Asia players. And when you think about an anchor like Josh, and then you think about momentum coming from the other side, from the unknown factor, mixed in with some humidity, how they're playing right now. I mean, it's kind of it's very important, Mike, leading to this event. I feel like without like I don't want to just it's the Efren Reyes Cup, but at the same time, it's like it's Josh though.
Yeah, it is. But even with Josh, I'm still kind of looking at this first year as exhibitionish. More so than the intensity and head to head that you get after 30 years of Mosconi Cup, right?
Right.
That's not going to happen on day one.
What was it like at the Mosconi Cup when they didn't have television and?
Well, they always had television, but it was in the UK. There was no television in the US. It was there was a sketch artist. There was a sketch artist.
They had to get the foil to get the
it was. If you talk to the American players, it was brutal.
Yeah.
Because in those days, the Mosconi Cup was in these small venues that had, 300 to 500 people just sitting right on top of the table. And they were ruthless against the Americans, ruthless. And it's one of the things that I think one of the reasons the Americans won those early years, they had better talent for one, but they really got there and they were 5 guys against the world.
Yeah.
Everybody hated them. Everybody
literally.
And it was so, and so they played really well. But the early days, there wasn't the animosity between the teams.
Right. No history, no rivalry.
There was always animosity between the fans, but it was one-sided because no fans in the U.S. got to see the Mosconi Cup on TV for the first 12, 15 years, right? So, this will be different. It'll be good competition. You have to look at a couple of factors. One, these guys just got out of 2 weeks of playing in Vietnam, right? They played the Perry Open, then they played Hanoi Open. A lot of these players on both teams went deep. Johan Chua wins the event yesterday, gets on a plane 2 hours later, flying back to Manila. He's got to be ready to.
We were all on the same flight, Mike. It's
so
Chua,
these
Ignacio,
guys
all these guys.
They got to get up tomorrow and start hitting the ball, in anger. And I don't know that they're going to be able to ratchet it back up that quickly, especially for an event that is not glorified exhibition. I don't want to downplay it at all, but they're just learning this. This is something new. It's something that's supposed to be fun the first year. It's something that's supposed to kick off this new Asia.
I think that's an excuse for the Europeans that are about to get routed, is what I think, Mike. I think
I don't know. You could look at it that way, or you could look at it as the Asian players are tapped out. I mean, there were a lot of European players on that team who spent a lot of time being able to get ready for this week. There were 3 Asian players from Team Asia on the final day.
Right.
With all that pressure, with all that drama, they got to be wrung out.
Some guys were let down, all but one, and then the emotion that comes with that. I mean, that's a big, major event, Mike, just from an individual standpoint. And then to go and compartmentalize and say, hey, I'm going to go and be teammates with this guy. And then on top of that, I'm facing a European contingent that, has been dominating this team event for basically because no one else got invited to the party.
Yeah.
Right? But it is an exhibition to some extent. But at the same time, what I love about the Asian players in particular is just the amount of heart and love that they play for their country. When I'm talking with a bunch of these guys, you can tell what it meant to them to make the team, but more importantly, finally feel like included into a party they should have always been invited to.
No, it's a great opportunity. It's a great kickoff for this whole new way of looking at, the Asian fans now, starting January, they're going to have this 12-month news cycle of
that we've never had before
for Reyes Cup. So now you took a whole other part of the world and you get them dialed in from a fan base standpoint,
motivated.
So and that will motivate the players more. But even after yesterday's final, was one of the first things Ko said was he's looking forward to playing with Chua on Team Asia. Go Team Asia.
Well, I think that's
so cool.
It's the overemphasis of the event, and rightfully so, right? Because we were looking forward to the Reyes Cup for quite some time, and I love how they kept on like circling back to it. But I think it's just because of the close proximity, from one to the other. We were all on a flight over here. The event ended, I think, at 10. I jumped out of there real quick. The matchroom team got out of there as soon as possible after the whole, formalities of pictures and all that stuff. But like, I'm at the airport and we're going through to check in, and there's Chua right there. And then I look over and there's Fran and David right there. And then there's Emily walking by, and it's like, it's everybody, but we're all on a 3-hour flight at 1 a.m. I'm wore out, man. I didn't get any. I mean, maybe I slept for 2 hours. I can imagine how Chua must feel, and Fran, who also, who played the last couple of days. But like, you don't have any time to like recover. You don't have any time to enjoy.
That's why I say, I think we, at least the first day of the Reyes Cup, I would expect play to be a little uneven. Okay. I would expect it to be a little uneven.
Before we hop into the Reyes Cup, and we'll jump into the players and the format and all that good stuff, the press conference that's going to be, let's talk about Hanoi Open. Let's talk about Johan Chua and what a performance that he had, Mike. I'll be honest with you, I didn't expect that when it comes to the Carlo matchup in particular. I picked Jeff to come out of that region, his buddy Ignacio, but it was more of like taking a flyer. But Chua, he exercised some demons for me in this tournament, Mike.
He exercised them for himself. I think he taught himself a lot. And this guy quietly has built up one of the, everybody's talking about Federer. This guy has had a pretty freaking good year, right? I mean, he's second European Open, ninth in the U.S. Open, third in the World Pool Championship, first here. So, here's a guy who's been there the whole year. He's been playing great the whole year, and the knock on him was not winning the big, Open final. And so, but all this is built up to all of a sudden this event, he knew how to handle everything better. I was like you. I thought that the trip up match was going to be the Beato match. I thought there was probably a little bit of nerves, a little hero worship, a little bit, knowing who
that's
he's
a real
playing.
thing, Mike. That's
an
a
real thing. And so I figured that if he was going to stumble, it was going to be against Carlo.
See, I wouldn't use the word stumble because Carlo's a killer, and Carlo had been dodging bullets left and right.
But if you watch even early on in that match, Johan missed a couple of times early in the match when he could have been up like 6-2 or 6-3. It was like 4-4. And you're thinking
Carlo made a lot
against
of mistakes
Carlo, that's going to cost you. And then he's
going
to look back and shake his head and wish he did. But he didn't. He stuck with it. And then he ended up rolling it. Really, you look at
he ran away with it.
He did. Well, he ran away with pretty much everything from the final 64.
Yeah.
He had no close matches.
Well, it was the Carlo matchup I was surprised about, but I was sitting there with Brett, our buddy with Q-Tech, and, of course, he's all about his guys, right? And rightfully so. And I get it. I love Brett, and he's awesome. And he's a friend of the show. But like what I took away from, and this is what I was talking with him about during that Carlo matchup, was that he always stayed focused. He always had this like killer like instinct look in his eye, and I was just like, I haven't seen that before from him. Like you
got to think that's
human.
something that you'll learn over time. Okay,
well, experience and battle scars and trauma,
and he's got a lot of them this year. He finished second European Open, and he has to look back at that and say, what do I do differently? I'm not going to let it bother me early in the match like I did in the European Open, or I'm not going to let it do what it did in the semifinals at the World Championship, whatever. And so these things are so fresh in his mind, that he knows how to approach it differently this time.
He had these responses post matches that were like different, where it wasn't that hero worshiping, like I'm on the outside looking into these guys who belong here. He had this, I'm here, it's my time, I'm going to take it now, and to back it up, and not in it, what in a cocky way or anything like that, but he believed, and what was even cooler was the fact that all things considering outside of the event, and the fact that Chua was kind of one of the spokespersons when it comes to this whole WPA, ACBS thing, and him being, listen, he's a young kid, right? And I would have figured others to make that kind of stand and be more of a leader in that aspect. Chua took the lead, and I posted last night, it's very poetic. This kid ended up, after everything, coming out on top of that event out of all of them.
It was great. And you posted the one response from, or I don't know who posted one response from the Vietnamese fan who said, we stand with him because he stood with us.
Well, like I'm sitting there.
That's like goosebumps stuff.
Man.
That's just, and that shows who Johan Chua is, and it shows what kind of respect the Asian community has for players like that. And so that stuff is just, it's great to see. It's great. It's a great storyline.
I'm getting emotional just thinking about it, Mike, because it was one of those things that just kind of came out of nowhere. A friend of mine who was working the event, and he had been reaching out online to me, and we had a few conversations, but he comes up to me in like this very like genuine enthusiasm and just, who do you like in the final? And it's funny because Chua was sitting right behind us, maybe like 15 feet with James. And I said, I like that guy right there. And then we continue on the conversation, and I'm standing by the railing. And I said, well, who do you like? And he said, Chua, and real definitive. And I was like, well, of course, And I'm
why
like,
was that so obvious?
I'm like, well, but why though? Because it's Ko, right? It's Ko Ping. He's a multiple-time world champion.
And Ko had it seemed like he had a really good fan base in his semifinal.
It was unbelievable, Mike. But like the snap call response that guy gave me, and he just dead looked at me in the eye and he says, well, he stood for us, so we stand for him. And I'm just like, how can you not love that story, Mike? You know what I mean? And that's how a lot of these fans felt, and they love Kobe out there in Vietnam. They do. Yeah. I've never heard cheering like that for a pool player ever in my entire life. Yeah. The fans were something special, of course, but man, that performance by Chua was just phenomenal. And to back it up, go wire to wire, like you said, didn't really have any threats, like 2/3 in any matchup in the final 64.
No, he was dominated. 10-3, 10-2. 10-5, 11-5, 11-7, or 13-7, whatever it was. I mean, he took control in the second half of all those matches and just pounded his opponent.
The closest matchup was another young player, even younger than Chua, and Claudio Cacci. I think it was in the round of maybe 64-32, and that one was kind of close on the secondary table. And Claudio, to his credit, and I can't wait to see what the future brings for him, Mike. But that kid is cold-blooded as well.
Yeah, he's a good, solid player, very technically sound, and plays like his brother, very deliberate.
Oh yeah, a lot of pump fakes, a lot of pump faking, Mike. If you're watching, but he's great though, man, and he's steady, and he stays in that moment and delivers, and he can hit a big shot like Chua did at many points throughout the round of 8 and 4 and 16. I mean, he just came with one big jump shot, one big save after another, ran out whenever he was supposed to. And even when he wasn't finding the break at certain parts in matches, he was his defensive play was outstanding as well. But once he found that break, though, that's when he put the foot on the neck of the likes of a Carlo Beato and a Copigny and guys like that.
Mike. No, he's a talented player. And it was a lot of this event was about younger players, unknown players.
AJ Manis, right?
AJ Manis, what a tournament that kid had. And Henry Vergara. Guys like that.
One of the best endings I've ever seen in a match in my entire life. I posted it online, Mike. It's very unassuming because I was talking with Shane at Sky, and I don't mean any disrespect to Harry or any of the Filipinos, but I don't know who the guy was. Yeah. And so I'm sitting there with Shane and Sky as they're warming up to start the round of 64. And I'm looking at Shane. I said, "You got a pretty good draw, man." I'm thinking he's in semifinal right now. You know what I mean? And so like that matchup was kind of to start off with an afterthought, but it was purely because of my lack of knowledge of Harry, right? Yeah. And so I'm looking and I'm scoreboard watching, and it's like 3-1, 4-1, 5-1, 6-1, 7-2, and I'm just like, what the fuck is going on here? You know what I mean? And Harry just handled his business. I loved his demeanor throughout that matchup. Yeah. Like he never got caught up in like the SBB part of it because listen, there's certain guys, these fans are very well educated. They love them some name players. They love the Jasons. They love the Shanes. They love them some Coes and Chuas and all those guys. But Harry just faded it and came with an amazing out and an amazing ending to that match. I'll never forget. That was just outstanding.
Yeah, that was the second to the last game was the one where he slow rolled that 8 after
never seen a shot like that. Yeah,
and just two amazing shots, completely different shots, but just two amazing shots. And then he broke the 9 in on the last game. Yeah, that was but he even mentioned he talked to you later, or right?
And
Adam,
and
he said. He said he was plenty nervous, and he knows who Shane is, and so these guys they look like they're freewheeling and playing house money, but those are big moments for guys like that.
My hands were shaking just watching them, and he's sitting there with, and by that point, everybody knew what was happening, in a sense of because Shane erases the deficit, right? Comes back and I think he makes it 7-7, then it's 8-7 Harry, then Shane got a roll and hooked him on the point. And even whenever Shane got the roll and you think, okay, he came all the way back. Now he gets this jelly roll out of nowhere and he shouldn't have gotten it. Harry just kind of like laughs. He finds his line and it's all feel, right? He finds his line on the kick, makes him the ball. And then you're like, okay. And then the ball's hanging in the hole. The cue ball
the cue ball's hanging in.
And the sickest cold-blooded slow roll.
8.5 feet away. I've never slow roll for position on 9. That was just like stupid. I don't know how his arm could even like stay with that stroke. Great stuff.
I heard a comment similar to this, Ryan. I don't know that it was many times, but I did hear a story of Vergara beating Shane in a 10-ball set out there in Dubai as well. So I didn't ask Shane about it because Shane got the hell out of there as soon as that match was over with.
Probably not a good topic to bring up at that point.
No. Well, I mean, Shane don't care, right? Shane just kind of like shrugs it off, but I mean, you can tell he wanted as well. I think all the players knew what a special event it was, and it wasn't because of the history. It wasn't because of
it's making its own history.
It really is, but it's because of the fans.
Yeah,
100%. It's because of the fans, Mike. You've been to pool events for the last 40 plus years. I've only been to a few events in the last couple of years, but I've never seen a fan base with the knowledge, with the respect, with the appreciation, and then just the raw sports.
Yeah.
There was not even in the crowd, but there was this girl who was in front of us, and she was in the back. And I don't know who she was, but I mean, Cole would miss a ball, and she, I just, was just wanting to go off, and she wouldn't because she respected it, but she was that kind of cheering for Chua, And there was so many fans that were like that, yelling in the stands, screaming their names. I mean, it's crazy environment, Mike.
Yeah, no, it is, and you just want to bottle that and bring it to these other events. You want the U.S. Open to be like that.
Oh, I wish.
You want the European Open to be like that. The UK Open to be. And so it's stuff that takes time. But the more U.S. fans sit there and watch the Vietnamese, the Hanoi Open, they want to start showing their colors and show up and cheer. And so that's the way you build events, over time and over space like that. So we can hope that next year, a couple other of these events have the same type of reaction.
If nothing else, just from a number standpoint, I hope they get more fans in attendance. Because these Vietnamese fans are really something special. For that final day, I heard a number where they sold over 3,000 tickets. So, which is like Mosconi type numbers.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's very strong, Mike.
Yeah.
And that's with a price increase from last year, from what I understand as well. So. Kudos to those fans. It was all about the people there in Vietnam, Mike, from the pool clubs out there, the fans out there. It was, granted, the event itself was a little humid at times and a little warm at times. Conditions weren't ideal for the players, but everything else outside of that was just nothing but class and top shelf. And I fell in love with Vietnam, Mike. I've never seen anything like it before, ever. But Chua, man, I mean, whenever I was talking about this event, especially because we build up Mosconi Cup all year long. We build up Reyes Cup all year long because it's scoreboard watch, right? We're watching this all year long and predicting and putting our foot in mouth, who's going to go where, who's going to make a move. And this event was kind of a little deflating in that regard because everything was kind of set in place. I mean, there was a couple of things where players could have made moves, but for the most part, everything kind of stayed the course in that regard. But it was the Asian players that took center stage right before the Reyes Cup, and then it was just one of the best finals and semifinals I've ever seen.
Yeah, great stuff all along. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the Reyes Cup that's about to start off, Mike. Starts tomorrow as well. You want to answer Tony's comment in there before we get going?
Where's that?
Yeah, let me see if we can highlight it.
You think Filler will be pulled from Mosconi?
Yeah. Are you going to ask Emily this before the press conference, Mike?
Sure, I'll ask.
Will you? Well, I guess I'm going to find me another roommate thing because you're going to be gone out of here.
Yeah, no, Josh and the Mosconi Cup. That's another topic for another day. I think
it's on people's minds, though, Mike. There's
I think
a lot of rumbling about it.
We may learn a little bit more this week during this event. There might be a couple, who knows, maybe a couple nuggets dropped here and there to see what's going to happen because, quite honestly, it's not that far off. So, you've got, if you're going to start pulling him and adding other players and travel and plans and all that kind of stuff,
right?
You got to get to it. So, it's not a decision that can wait until the day before the Mosconi Cup starts.
It drastically changes the landscape of the competitiveness of both events. Like I mentioned before, Josh is an anchor for these guys. Now you got the likes of Mickey Krause, who's a rookie, of Francisco, who has very little Mosconi Cup experience. Kachi, who, although he was number one on the team, he did not look very sharp out there in Hanoi. So who knows what kind of form he's going to be in.
He hasn't looked really very sharp since the World Championship.
Shaw, who,
cruise control.
Shaw is there for the Jason Shaw show. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. He's great under those lights, but then he's great under those lights when you have the likes of Albin sitting behind him.
No, he's going to have to do some coaching this year.
He's going to have to
do some captaining this year. Especially if Josh doesn't play Mosconi, then it's a whole different setup. So, there's going to be a little more heat on him. I know that, I'm sure he wanted to go into this year if he could with the same team that they've had the last 2 years, and then it would just be hit the cruise control button and just go do it.
So
but that's not going to.
Why do you think it's not? I mean, we know the Josh situation, but why do you think
Well, Mickey's in Mosconi Cup.
Right.
Akachi's in Mosconi Cup. So you've got 2 out of the 5 players already who are not there from the last 2 years.
No.
So, if you have Josh and a FSR, those are 2 guys who played in the last couple of years. If Josh isn't there and you end up with an FSR and David Alcade, 2 guys who are the last 2 years. So
David's steady.
He's looking for some, Jason's looking for some something to make the move a little bit easier, right? So it's going to be a little bit different. He's going to have to work a little bit harder this year for sure. But it should make for some good drama in Orlando.
I agree with you, and if nothing else, great talking leading up to it, right? Until we get some kind of stamp where it's 100%, because we're kind of getting he's on the team for now kind of responses, from Matchroom, and I don't see how you can keep him on the team just considering the fact that he's not here for this event. I don't see why you would one or the other.
Filler?
Yeah.
Well, it's fun. It's like, okay, if it's a punishment thing, is one event enough? And if it's Josh doesn't want to play, then I would think that he wouldn't want to play in either event. But
you don't think he wants to play in a Mosconi Cup or a Reyes Cup, Mike?
I'm sure he wants to play in a Mosconi Cup. It's a much bigger payday, right? So, and Josh is all about the money. So, it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, right? I did see someone put a comment in about Josh would have like 2 minutes to get to the tournament in Qatar. But I want to set the record straight on that. The Qatar event starts a day later, but the first at least 3 days of that event are a stage 1 qualifier.
Yeah, so right? Josh would not have to
qualify. So none of these players who are in the top of the WPA list would have to fade those first 3 days. So it has nothing to do with would he have time to get to Qatar. He's got plenty of time to get to Qatar. So that's not really part of the equation.
Yeah, I think from going into the Reyes Cup, when I thought about the potential landscape for this European team, I'm favoring them going into it, because of the experience and because they got murderer's row of world champions on that roster and guys who can just deliver. Now, with, again, no disrespect to these guys, but Kachi and Mickey, and Mickey's had a phenomenal year. I don't take anything away from him. He earned his place on that team, but he's an unknown commodity on that stage, though, Mike. That's the thing. And we know what we can get from Jason, but like I said, I know what I can get from Jason when you got, aces in your back pocket.
Somebody else calling the shots.
Right. And Josh is the guy who you send out to fade, who you go and face with anybody, Mike.
And all of a sudden you're under pressure and you got to make up the lineup and you got to make decisions. You got to talk people off the ledge. You got to do this and that. And oh, by the way, you're playing next in the singles. Yeah. It's a different type of equation. Can Jason Shaw handle that? Most likely, yeah, because he's a very sharp, confident guy when it comes to, things like the Mosconi Cup teams and the format, things like that. So I think that he can handle it fine, but it's definitely a different job than it would have been if he'd rolled in with the same 5 he had the last 2 years.
We were talking about that might be the greatest Mosconi Cup team ever assembled, a couple years ago, with Albin and Josh and Jason and Fran coming off the amazing 2 years that he had as well. You know what I mean? And what turned from Federer up until David, that they still dominated as well. And so it is going to be different. I hate to be that victim of the moment, Mike, but when I think about 3 out of the 4 guys playing in a final, the conditions, because I hear it's going to be a little sticky.
Now we're talking about Reyes Cup.
Reyes Cup, yeah. But the conditions out there.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be tough for Team Asia. The other thing about this event is they really had no time to get together as a team and try out some doubles play and see how you fade this. You talk about what the format is like. Talk about what to expect out there. The shot clock when you're playing partners, the communication, is there a communication barrier between any of the players? Things like that. That's all stuff that they're not even touching until today.
Well,
right?
The Europeans have gotten together out there in Vietnam.
And they know how to do it. I mean, Fran, David, Jason, that's easy stuff. So, but it's not like they were still doing that during the middle of a tournament.
Yeah.
Right. So what was their focus? 40%?
If that.
Okay.
If
so it was like gratuitous team time, but it wasn't that 3-4 days ahead of the Mosconi Cup where they come in early and they go do team building at some, pickleball court or something like that. And
pickleball's fun, man. Don't be knocking pickleball. All
right. and then go in and get some serious practice and whatever. They're just, and again, I think that I think part of that is that this is the first year. It's a little bit exhibitionist. It's got that kind of vibe to it. So I don't think that they're as wired up as they are when they come rolling in the Mosconi Cup. That's a whole different, guys come in like on edge, right? No one's rolling in here on edge.
No. And I agree with you on that. I just think that the Asians, the Filipinos, they step up differently. I think, hearing Ko talk about the event, you can tell that like it meant something for him to be a part of this team and to be included. Yeah,
once it gets rolling in that arena and the Filipinos are behind Carlo and Johan Chua every time they take a shot, the blood will start flowing pretty quickly. That's why I said I expect the first day to be a little bit uneven. After that, I expect the Asian players to really dial in.
Give me a key to the Europeans being successful at this event, Mike, and coming away with a win.
Knowing how to play teams better. Doubles.
Do they though?
Doubles?
Do those 5 players know how to play well together?
Well, Fran and David certainly do, and Jason plays pretty well with anybody. So
go ask Elliot Sanderson that if he plays pretty good with anybody, Mike. I mean, right?
Well, Elliot Sanderson,
go ask Chris Melling that, Mike. If Jason plays well with everybody, it's not a plug and play. It's not it. That's the thing. That's the difference between having a Josh and being able to just send him out there with Josh versus you're gonna have to explain to these guys how to fade those moments. You know what I mean? How to be aware of the shot clock, how to be aware of don't worry about the fans. Hey, you got 10 seconds.
I like the Asians in singles.
I gotta be honest with you. I hate being victim of the moment. I like the Asians in general, Mike. And I wouldn't have said that. Well, I knew it was gonna be tough, but I think the Europeans are in trouble here. I'll be honest with you. And the key
the Asians had a pretty good week in Vietnam. Well, so that now it looks like they're all of them are except for are firing on all cylinders. Well, right?
But then you got Fran, who's coming alive at the right time, coming off of a Perry win and then going deep.
He did himself well in the last couple of weeks for sure.
No doubt about it. David's about as steady a guy as you can ask for. Severely underrated. Coming in at the last minute, but very, very well respected in this environment with a great record as well, I might add. And so we know the experience that he brings to the table and him also being in Vietnam, the conditions.
Listen, they're all playing well for the most part because otherwise they wouldn't have made the team.
Yeah.
So, you're not picking number 96 off any list and throwing them
out. Is that a dig at the Americans right there, Mike? You're not picking 96?
Is Billy that high?
Oh man, I didn't say that, Mike. Good night. I did not say that.
That was low hanging fruit.
I was not even teeing that one up, man.
I had to go there.
That's pretty good though, man. That just shows your experience. So you're batting 840 Fargo right now on the podcast department. No, look, who I want to see is Mickey, because Mickey has every time I think that, and this is too big of a moment for this kid. He just stays steady and delivers and comes out with a big win. And he's got a win over Chua this year as well, Mike.
Here's the thing about Mickey, that as an American fan, I don't like him playing in this event because it gives him a feel for what it's going to be like in Orlando.
Oh, it gives him a pass. That's fair. That's a good point too, Mike.
It gives him a little warm up. The U.S. when they went over there,
which you don't get that. You dive on in.
Those 2 years when the U.S. won in 18 and 19, they had warm-up head-to-heads, right?
Yeah.
Against Russians, against Europeans, whatever. And it helped them out, helped them kind of get into a little bit of a groove, whatever. So, I love Mickey Krause. I think he's going to be a great player for a long time to come because he's really worked to get where he's at. It's not a flash in the pan. But I wanted to see him make this team because I wanted his first year in a Mosconi Cup
to see him rattle.
To be in an event in the U.S. where he's going to get a whole amount. So, for him to have this opportunity here before having to play Mosconi Cup, I think is going to help him a lot.
Do you think this is the beginning of like this transition of the new guard of European players in Mickey?
Well, it could be, but it's funny, when I think about we talk about Jason wanting to have the same team he's had.
Right.
That's the trap that the U.S. ran into for a lot of years with the Mosconi Cup. They kept leaning back on the same old guys, and they were getting older, and they were getting a ball short of what they were last year, and they overplayed that hand too many years, and they started getting drilled.
Stubborn.
And so, they always talk about that, especially with the Europeans. Like if you're going to make, there's no wild card rookies on Team Europe.
No, you do not get in. You do not get into that club as a rookie.
And so it's tough to make rookie as an automatic. So if you keep that mentality, how many more years is he going to lean on David or an Albin or guys like that?
They're not getting any younger.
So and they all play great still, but that's what we always used to think about the Rodney Morrises and the Earl Stricklands and the Johnny Archers when they were getting a little long in the tooth, right?
Right.
And so if you're Europe, you have to avoid falling into that trap, that comfort trap, because you've been winning with all these guys.
But they're good at breeding these monsters that go and
they are, but they're not getting the opportunity. They're not getting the opportunity to have that first year where they might not play great, like Kachi didn't in 18. You got to give them that opportunity to go in there and fail a little, get rattled a little bit, so they learn what Mosconi's about. You're not going to wait till they're in the middle of their career and then give them their first Mosconi Cup start.
Right.
So that's those are just some of the things that come into play.
I think he's got the right demeanor and game to be able to fade it.
Yeah.
But he's never dealt with the. I mean, he might as well be on Team Asia because he's loved out here in the Philippines. Which I think goes well for him because he's had Mickey.
Yeah.
Mickey.
Well, and I mentioned before to somebody, I'm going to be interested to see how Mickey blends in with Team Europe, because I don't consider him a Team Europe guy. He's not part of that continental Europe clique.
Did you consider Kachi part of that Team Europe club or Federer?
No,
part of that
and they talked
club?
about Kachi many years about, he wasn't everybody's first pick to be on, on Team Europe. And so, Mickey, his closest people are in the U.S. and the Philippines.
Yeah.
Right. So, but he's a real easy to get along with guy, and he's a great player and whatever. He's not going to be a problem for Team Europe. I just don't know if he feels like, hugs and high fives with Fran and David all the time. Right. So, it'd be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out.
So the matches will start tomorrow in
7:30 Filipino time.
7:30 Filipino time, and I think right now it's 11:45 p.m. in Central Time in the States.
It is 11:45 Central. GMT, I have no freaking idea what GMT. That would be like cut it in half, right?
So let's see.
So it would probably be 7:30 here is
so 6:30 a.m.
a.m. in the U.S., which means about 2:30.
Just don't go to sleep. Just don't sleep. It's real easy.
Europe, whatever.
Yeah. Don't sleep.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Y'all got smartphones. Just type in what is the current time and
ask Siri. she'll give you a heads up.
We got to do everything for you guys. Jesus.
A lot of question marks for sure. And this is what I love about these events. You made a great point about Mickey and kind of getting a pass and a free roll into the Mosconi Cup environment. I think that him playing out here for so long and then being in Vietnam like these other guys are really going to serve him well. The Mosconi Cup is a little bit different animal, and I don't know how much the fans are going to really try to get to him. It's going to be great to watch.
I don't know if they're going to go after Mickey individually.
Yeah,
but he's going to have
not the guy.
He's going to have to walk into those arenas.
If you show cracks, it's a different
story.
They'll
jump on you and just go walking into the arena. Period. He's going to get the full brunt of 3,000 fans screaming to kill the other team.
Yeah.
So he'll get a taste of that. I don't know if we'll see. I'm going to be really interested to see how vocal the fans here are. That's going to be interesting to see. I mean, they love their pool here, and they got their heroes playing on the team. You would imagine they're going to be in full throat, but it's the first time, so it's going to be a feeling out period for the players and for the fans and for Matchroom and whatever.
Give me the best player and the weakest link for the Europeans, Mike.
Your weakest link?
Come on, Mike. Okay, how about the best one? Let's go with the best one then.
Best player for Team Europe is going to be Jason.
You're just basing that off of team experience?
I'm basing it off Jason's mentality. Jason had a pretty good run here. He looked pretty sharp in his matches here until the wheels came off.
I don't think the wheels came off. I think Copigny just took it, but Jason looked good though.
He looked really good here, and we know how mentally tough he is.
Of course,
and we know how confident he is in himself, and we know how much he's. I think in the last couple of years, he's felt like he was the captain of Team Europe, anyways. Making most of the decisions, things like that. So I think he takes pride and he's going to take pride in being that guy who's going to lead the troops, say all the right things, pull all the right moves, do all that kind of stuff. So, and I expect, he's going to try to lead by example through his game. So I really do expect him to be the best player for Team Europe. Weak link for Team Europe. Going into it, you got to think Patchy. He hasn't
Which
played.
Which is crazy because he was a number one pick for the Europeans.
But it's the World Victor Zielinski type of there was that's 6 months ago. So
what have you done for me lately?
Exactly. Besides miss a couple tournaments and then show up and get booted out of one before it got to 64. So
which was shocking, by the way.
So he's and here's the thing we know about Kachi. He was out of that tournament early and he's having to come here for this tournament. You think he was pulling a Shane in the local pool room practicing for the last 5 days?
Well, he was doing exhibitions against Vietnamese players but it was playing tin ball. So that he was doing. I'm sure he was collecting a nice little appearance fee as well.
Yeah, putting in a lot of hard work. I expect if there's going to be a weak link, and weak links all relative. It's not like these guys are going to be playing 3 cushion for 4 days.
Right.
But I think that they might be able to steal some matches from him.
I'll ask you the same question when it comes to the Asian players, Mike.
Asian players, if you're thinking of weak links, it's the same situation as Kachi. You're looking at Yap and you're saying, you had some good numbers early on, but what have you done for me lately?
Okay.
I love Aloysius Yap, but he really hasn't.
One of the nicest guys on tour, by the way,
and a great talent. Just has not played all that well in the last 3-4 months, right? As far as best player for Team Asia. You got to pick between Carlo and Johan, right? I mean, you got to think one of the local guys is going to come in hot and heavy.
You would have snap called Carlo until yesterday or until the last 2 days.
I mean, how can you not? I mean, Chua's got to roll in there as today's darling and confident as you can be, and it's just a matter of how much.
He's the big dog in the yard, Mike.
He is, but how much emotionally got drained out of him yesterday. And he's going to be able to turn it back on. It's not a light switch for these guys. So is he going to be able to get it back this quickly here? So if I had to make a call on a snap call, I would probably say Carlos going to be the guy.
You got guys who...
Because Carlos showed that leadership when they won the teams.
Of course,
right?
Yes. And you know how it is in these cultures, Mike. It's like the elders get the respect. But he's not only the elder, but he's also got a lot of hardware in that trophy room as well, Mike.
Yeah, right.
I think that I think you hit the nail on the head when it comes to these. And I asked Yap, and the previous 2 times that I've talked to Yap after a match was last year, U.S. Open. What was it, like 9-0 against Ko Ping Chun? and I said, did you make a ball in that match, or did you make a ball in the
practice?
Yeah. And he laughed and he says, "Yeah, I made 9 before the match started, in the warm-up practice." And then when he went out in the Hanoi Open, I said, "Well, how are you feeling?" And this is I've been trying to link up with him the last couple of days, and it just hasn't worked out. But I plan on it. But anyway, I asked him at the Hanoi. I said, "Well, how are you feeling going into Reyes?" He's like, "Well, I can't go 2-0 in that event." And so, but I love his attitude.
Oh, he's great.
He's so lighthearted.
You want him to do well. He's a guy that you want to cheer for to do well.
Of course.
But if you had to look at someone on where their speed is right now on Team Asia, you're thinking, well, he's low man on a totem pole.
Well, look, they've had a similar Philippines versus Taiwan matchup before.
Yeah.
Carlo's been in there before. Ko Ping has been in there before. Chua, I'm pretty sure.
Well, Chua played with him in the teams, and Chua
as
also
well did Ko Ping in Taiwan.
Chua also won World Cup. With Aranis.
Yeah, so he's got that experience under his belt for sure. Now the Huang factor. I mean, What do you think about that guy in this event, Mike?
Yeah, well, I mean, he would have been the next obvious pick for possible weakest link. I think that he's going to be.
He's an unknown.
He's an unknown.
Out here.
Well, if you had to bet, are you thinking more? You know, he's going to surprise us with his cool demeanor, or he's going to be deer in the headlights?
I'm gonna go with option A, the cool demeanor, because here's the thing: he's been around those Vietnamese fans plenty of times when it comes to the pressure, the craziness, and I mean that like in a passionate, loving kind of way. You know what I mean? And how much they cheer for him. But he's been in that kind of environment before, maybe unofficially. I know it's never been anything like this, but we are in the Philippines, right? So they are going to be rooting for the Asian players more than the Europeans by a mile. And so and Huang is just like this quiet assassin. He can come with a big jump shot. He can come with a big long shot. I've seen him in
okay. But here's the thing: how many singles matches is he going to play? 2?
Okay,
maybe. Okay. What's he going to be like playing doubles? Language barrier, communication, playing doubles.
They point at the table, Mike. That they look and they just point at the table. You know, right? And Juan can understand English because I've talked to him a couple of times. Now his delivery back isn't the best, but like he can understand it enough.
Yeah.
And the Copenhagen's English has gotten phenomenally better over the last 5 years by a mile. Carlos speaks good English. Johan speaks good English. But you know what? They all speak that universal language of run out pool, Mike. You know, and position here. You know, safety here. You know, and you. If you're Huang, you're used to being the alpha when it comes to the Vietnamese players, but you have trust in these other 4 guys, right? Like if you're saying Aloysius is going to be that weakest link because of performance over the last couple months, it's like you still trust his cue ball. You can still trust him when it comes to execution. Now he's never been out there in that kind of spot before.
That trust thing in the doubles, it's not automatic just because they're good pool players.
You know,
I mean, we've seen it in the past where in the Mosconi Cups, where there have been double pairings, or in World Cup pool where it's just like, you know, these guys just don't blend together. I mean,
I would send him with Carlo, the leader. You know, I know Carlo was the last pick when it comes, or was second to last pick when it comes to Team Asia. But I would send him out with the Carlo. Let him get his feet wet with the guy who is just through and through, been in that team environment. He knows he can come with a big one. He plays smart pool. He can play in short race format. You know, send him out there with him. Let him get comfortable like that. They'll be rooting for him because they got the Filipino alongside him. I think
the new format's going to help them all too because there's team match every day.
I love this new format, Mike.
Team matches every day except the last day. The first 3 days there will be a team match. So I think that will help them all kind of get a little bit loose, you know, and a little bit, you know, they all get, because those days where, you know, you'd come into the arena for Mosconi Cup and you weren't playing until the last match of the day, or you weren't even playing at all that day, and you got to sit there and, you know, this way they come out there to play a team match. They all get to play a rack. They all get to hit some balls. You know, it helps.
It's going to take 5 to win and 5 to lose.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to be riding the Josh train like we've seen in years past. And let me ask you something, Mike. Do you think that format's going to carry over to Mosconi Cup?
Yeah. I think that they'll see, you know, I don't see any big changes to Mosconi Cup. I think it'll be pretty much, if not exactly the same. They maybe they'll find out something this week that they didn't think of beforehand that they need to tweak, but it'd be very minor. I expect them to use pretty much the exact same format.
Well, I can tell you during that final last night, the crowd was just, the room was electric. And but I look in the back and there's still 5 practice tables back there. And for the entire match.
Was Shane on tape?
Shane was long on a flight that night whenever he lost to Harry. But back there in the back, just hitting balls over and over and over again for hours on end, like a Carlo would, was Huang.
Yeah,
he was out there practicing, and nobody was there. It was just him, just hitting balls on that slick cloth, and then polished balls, and just trying to get, and the humidity because it was humid in there, and just trying to get dialed in. You know, so it is an exhibition to some extent, but these guys want it. The Europeans play with a lot of pride because they're used to being that big dog in the yard. They're used to being the guy. They're used to being the bully, you know. And the Asian players, they play with some pride, Mike. They play for their country. They play for the guy who should have been invited to this party a long time ago, and they're coming to take your girlfriend right now, Mike, is what they're coming for.
Well, all right, so what's the odds that Europe goes 0-2 this year?
I don't know about 0-2. 0-1, I would say. I think they go 0-1. I don't know about 0-2, Mike. I'm not going to go that far.
Well, you say they'd go 1-1.
Well, I mean, it's 1-1. Excuse me. I think it is going to be that warm up factor for a Mickey going into the Mosconi Cup is a real deal. That's something you can count on. The same thing with Akashi. If these boys go out here and get embarrassed, or even if they slightly lose, because they're not used to losing, okay, they're going to be that much more motivated to get their ass in the practice room. Because guess who's sitting? Oh, waiting them. Sky is playing pretty good right now. I know he lost a friend in Hanoi.
Yeah.
You got Federer and you got SVB sitting there. Those are, and then Tyler, who can go and steal a couple for you if need be. But you got a couple of guys who can punch you back out there, and you can't go out there with your B game against those three guys.
Yeah,
but again, it's going to take 5 to win, 5 to lose, Mike. Yeah. So that's where it's going to be interesting. But if they do get embarrassed, or even for that matter, just lose, a guy like Jason, hey, this is where you earn your money, pal, because you better go over there and light a fire into their ass come this December, because that is not the European way at all, Mike.
Right.
So it's going to make for an interesting.
As an American fan, we probably would have all preferred to not be a Reyes Cup this year.
I mean, it is like a tune-up for these boys, right? It is a tune-up for them.
So it's either going to be a tune-up or a wake-up call or whatever, but it's going to help Team Europe coming into the Mosconi Cup, no matter how you slice it.
Well, I mean, yes and no when it comes to conditions, but from the experience factor for sure, because you get an extra, you get a free at bat basically, to get your feet wet in that event. Let me just end the show on this, Mike. Give me a score for the Reyes Cup. What do you think it's going to be? But is it race to 11? Right? Or 9?
No, it's 11.
11. We probably should have known that.
It's 11, right?
Okay.
So
fingers crossed.
I'm going to say 11-8 Asia.
That's pretty spot on for what I was going to say. I was going to say 11-7 in favor of Asia. 11-7, which by the European standards is not going to be good. I'm not saying it's going to get bloody. I'm not saying it's going to get out of hand like last year's Mosconi Cup, because those European players, they know how to weather. They know how to stand tall on their own. To some extent, there's some trust there, at least when it comes to the core, and all they need is for these other guys to just ride the ship.
Yeah, buy in.
That's all they got to do, because you got guys who have been there and done that. I want to see the Europeans get punched in the face, because they're used to being the ones to do the swinging, so how are they going to handle that adversity? How are they going to handle if they do go out there and get bullied, because it's going to show a whole other level of their character that maybe we haven't seen before, Mike.
Yeah, it's possible. So let me ask you this. Well, did you come with a score? Oh, it's
11-7. I'm saying 11-7 in favor of Asia.
So one thing we haven't talked about at all in this entire discussion about the Reyes Cup is, are the captains going to have any impact on these teams?
I don't think I've mentioned Efren Reyes once, other than
or Carl Boys
or Carl. No, because when we talk about the captains, we're talking about
Jason and Carlo.
Yeah, pretty much, right? Yeah.
So I mean, are they just? I mean, Efren to me is purely figurehead.
Right.
I don't see Efren, making decisions on who's coming out first tomorrow.
No.
And I don't see him, doing the Ralph Eckert walk out there between every game and pat a guy on the back.
Yeah.
So nothing against Ralph. I mean,
the cup of tea at?
There was nothing for him
Ralph
to do last
everybody.
year. There was nothing to do. Yeah. But I see boys will be a little more involved, but I don't see Efren really being too involved. So it's going to be interesting to watch.
I think Carl's going to have to do some work, because if there are storms to fade, then you're going to have to get these boys back engaged. Like you mentioned about Jason, you can't be wearing all these hats and then plus go out there and play as well.
And Carl knows. Carl's sharp when it comes to Mosconi Cup.
Very sharp. And one of the smartest minds when it comes to how to play in that event, Mike.
So he'll be able to make the right moves, say the right words, flip the right switches. So I mean, advantage to them in terms of.
That's when you had Alvin. That's when you had Josh. That's when you had
Jason.
But
I'm just talking about if you've got a team that's starting to slip a little bit and you need to turn it back around. Okay, huge edge to Carl Boys over Efren Reyes and being able to do that here.
I mean, yeah, you can't argue that because of the experience factor.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I mean, this is where I think, Carlo unofficially earns, his paycheck in that regard, because they're gonna. I would assume they would lean on him. Everybody in that locker room would lean on him and defer to him and trust whatever he would go and say, Mike.
Yeah, right.
Because he.
And I don't see Efren standing in his way from doing that.
No, it's
what he said.
Yeah. He's gonna write out the score sheet. Go get him. No, look, I'm excited to see Efren. Hopefully, we get a chance to talk to him over the next day or so before the event starts. It does start tomorrow. I flew in from Hanoi. You came in a couple of days early, but the event starts tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
So I know this has been a long time coming. I can't believe that I'm here. I can't believe all the players are here. It's going to be an awesome event. I think it's going to be on the zone if you're in the U.S., wherever you are in the world. When I would come back from the tournament room out there in Hanoi, I could watch the tournament on cable television, Mike, like the equivalent of ESPN. It was the wildest thing,
If they do that here, I might never leave the room.
Well, you got to go to work. You got to go to work, buddy. All right, we will do daily shows, maybe from the venue, if not from out here as well. Kind of some pregame and some postgame. Again, it starts tomorrow. Press conference is going to be 2 hours from now. 3 o'clock, I think. So we're at 1 o'clock.
1 hour from now. No. Oh, yeah, 2 hours from now.
2 hours.
We're leaving.
The whole reason why we did the show, besides the fact that, appreciate our sponsors and everybody who's helped out with getting me out here, but because my ass was about to fall asleep out here, because I've only gotten like an hour and a half worth of sleep. And I said, Mike, we better do something.
Better do a show.
I'm going to be in trouble and I might sleep all day long.
Let's entertain.
So anyhow, keep your notifications on. We're going to get a lot of player reaction and interviews. I'm hoping to talk to everybody that I can, not just during the press conference, but also for at least a few minutes before the event. So thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us this evening or this morning, depending on where you are.